Hello, Quilt Show managers. My name is Jan Cancilla, and I am the Director of Global Volunteerism. The purpose of today's video is to help prepare you for becoming a Quilt Show manager. And we've put together a packet of information for you, and there's 6 reasons we've done this. And let me just tell you what they are. Number one, we want to create a so powerful brand that's universally recognized, whether it's by seeing our logo or the way our booths are set up. We want so powerful to be recognized, we want to have standards, and we want to ensure quality. The other reason, the number 2 reason, is that we want to make it easier for show managers to prepare, set up, execute, and tear down their booths at a quilt show, and to do it without the stress of not knowing what to expect. Number 3 is that we want show managers to be able to represent so powerful consistently. So whether your show happens to be in Delaware or in Montana, the show should be somewhat similar with certain adjustments for your local community. But we want to consistently represent so powerful to the general public, to our volunteers, and we're going to do that with what we say, how our booth appears, and the appearance of our volunteers by wearing the So Powerful apron. We also want to ensure a great volunteer experience for both our show managers and the volunteers. And we're going to do that by trying to eliminate as many surprises as possible so that you'll know what to expect, you'll be comfortable in the work that you're doing, and that you'll be ready to go. Reason number 5 is that we want to be transparent about what So Powerful will provide versus what we expect the show manager to provide. And we're going to be covering that today, as well as you'll see it in more details in the documents we'll be referencing. And finally, number 6, the reason number 6 we're doing this is that we want to emphasize our RAD goals. Now, RAD was, I'm showing my age, RAD was a term used in the 80s or maybe the 90s that meant really cool, but we're using RAD as an acronym, and it stands for: R is recruit purse makers, A is to raise awareness, A for awareness, and D is to secure donations. So we have recruitment, awareness, and donations, and their importance is in that order. Our main reason for going to quilt shows is to find other people who would like to help us on this journey and make purses with us. But not everybody's going to agree to do that. And so our next best thing would be to make them aware of So Powerful. And where possible, we'd like to be able to secure donations to help defray the cost of our booth. This video is broken into 3 parts with a break in between each one, and let me just show you what they are. Part 1 is we're going to talk about the So Powerful Quilt Show Handbook, and this is going to take you step by step. The handbook is your starting place. It has many links, and it has our booth standards, and so we're going to go over all of that, and that will be part 1. Part 2 is the show manager's checklist. And if you follow this checklist and just mark everything off, you'll have everything you need when you arrive at your destination to start setting up your booth. And at the end of the show, when you pack everything up, you'll have what you need, and you'll be sure that you've taken everything back home with you. And finally, part 3 is an automated form that we are going to ask you some questions about your show. That's the survey part. And then the form will also be used to generate a supply request so that you can get the supplies you need when you need them and in the quantities you need. So let's get started with part 1. Okay, let's start with the handbook. The official name, Quilt Show Manager's Handbook, was updated July 9th, 2021. If you're watching this months from now, there may have been updates since then, but the general ideas will be put forth in this video, but details may be different as time passes. The purpose of this handbook is to provide you with everything you need to manage a So Powerful Quilt Show booth, including booth standards, a supply list, forms, checklists, tips, and contacts. Some of this information is contained in this handbook. Others provide, in other cases, there are links that will take you to these items. And let's talk about this photo right here, just in case you don't know everybody in the picture. That's Jason Miles, co-founder of So Powerful. Leslie Unruh is the regional coordinator for the state of Washington and also a very active volunteer with So Powerful. That's me in my skinnier days. Cinnamon Miles, co-founder of So Powerful. Susan Kirby, who is the regional coordinator for Oregon, the area manager for the Western US, and the CFO for So Powerful. And on the far right, we see Pat Quigley, who is a volunteer and So Powerful purse maker. And you'll often see Pat volunteering to work in booths in and around her home of Houston, Texas. And this photo was taken at the Houston Quilt Festival in about 2018. And of course, that was before we had the standards. So we are going to proceed. Let's talk about what we'll find in the handbook. Here is the table of contents. It does have interactive links. So if you start here, you can click on any of these links, but the page numbers are also shown. So what we have is an introduction, the booth standard pages with some layouts that we'll go over in just a moment, high-level list of supplies and who's going to provide what, whether it's So Powerful or the show manager. We'll talk about the documents and forms, and those will be available to you through links, but we're going to talk about that in part 2. The checklist is also a part 2 discussion, but you get to it through a link in this document. There's also a page of tips. For every tip, we've learned a lesson by doing something. Maybe we've learned we shouldn't do going forward. The one about wearing comfortable shoes might be my most important tip for you of all, but we do have some good tips in there. And then the last page of this document has a directory with contacts and email addresses and phone numbers. And we do consider this to be an internal document. This is for your reference and not to be shared outside of So Powerful. Okay, let's start with the introduction. Jason and Cinnamon have given you a warm welcome and let you know how grateful they are that you have chosen to take on this role. It's very important. And as we've done more and more quilt shows, we've realized that many people A, haven't heard of So Powerful, but B, are not aware of the challenges that our schoolgirls face in Zambia with not having menstrual supplies when they're able to be able to go to school, and the extent of the poverty in that country. And so the program that So Powerful has put forward in a loving ministry to be able to address both of those situations. So there's your welcome from Jason and Cinnamon. The next page talks about standards, and we're going to provide a blueprint for a 10 by 10 booth. And this is a lot of lessons learned, having done this quite a few times now. And what we've tried to do is optimize traffic flow and attention. We have 3 standard layouts. We have the 10 by 10 with three tall sides, the 10 by 10 with 2 short sides, and a corner booth. So we'll talk about them, but we're going to talk about option 1, the 10 by 10 with the 3 tall sides, because that's the most common. We're going to talk about that in the video here. The others, if you have a show that requires one of those other layouts, you'll know where to find it. And the ideas are basically the same, just a little bit different arrangement. So here's a synopsis of what those 3 options look like. As I mentioned, option 1 is the 10 by 10 booth with 3 walls. So this is normally an aisle location, and your booth is like a 3-sided alcove. There's one table provided usually, and it's 8 foot long, 30 inches wide by 30 inches tall, which is considered a standard banquet table. We're asking our show managers to provide 3 folding tables. 2 would be 4 feet long by 24 inches wide by 30 inches tall, and a round highboy that might be anywhere from 30 to 36 inches round across. And they're usually something like 39 to 42 inches tall. So something in that general vicinity as a tall round table. One of our options does ask you to bring a coat rack to display purses, but that's not part of option 1. We've calculated that you're going to need 106 purses to put on display. And we're going to have some great suggestions as to where you're going to get this 100 plus purses. We've also calculated how many open square feet you will have in the booth after everything is set up. And that will help us determine how many booth workers you should have per shift so that there's still room for people to move around and show attendees to become engaged and walk into the booth and see what's going on. Option 2 is also 10 by 10, but it has 2 3-foot walls on the side. It's an aisle location. It's 10 feet open, 10 feet of open space on the front, the same table provided by the show, the same 3 tables provided by the show manager. In this case, we ask you to supply a coat rack, and it requires fewer purses because there's less wall space for hanging. About the same amount of floor space because it's, again, a 10 by 10 floor footprint, and 2 to 3 people working in the booth. Now, option 3 is a little bit different. This is a corner booth. We usually don't get these because they come at a premium, but every now and then there'll be an opening and a show management person might contact us and ask us if we would like to have that at no additional cost. And of course, we would jump at the chance. And the reason for that is that you have 20 feet of open space. That's double the space for people who are walking by to look into our booth and be engaged with So Powerful. Same tables. The coat rack is optional. You have less wall space for hanging purses. So the coat rack might be a way to add some supplemental purses. And so if you don't have the coat rack, you would have 63 hanging purses, which is still a good number of purses. It really makes a striking display. But with the coat rack, that would go up to 79. But you do have more square feet of floor space. And so in a corner booth, you can have 3 or 4 booth workers comfortably. Okay, let's talk about the layout for option 1. So first off, here's a photo, and there's our Shirley Utz, who is our Facebook administrator, and she has the title of Facebook Regional Coordinator. She's being interviewed by the media. They happened to see our booth walking by and said, wow, what is this all about? And Shirley was giving them that information at the Houston Quilt Festival in 2019. Here you can see hanging purses, large format photos, an African print on the table, black tablecloths. That red and yellow you see on the floor are padded mats. And so we're going to talk about all of that. So again, this was before our standards. And so there's some variations between this setup and what we'll be talking about, but you get the general idea. So let's start. So this is the bird's eye view. You get a 10 by 10 booth open on the front and 8-foot tall walls on 3 sides. The walls are made up of metal pipe and they're draped to the floor with fabric drapes. And this is what our optimized layout will be. Usually the show provides a chair. We're going to stick it there. Let's start in the back corner. We'll put the show provided table, that 8-foot table, in the back left. At a right angle, we'll put our 4-foot table. So we know it's 2 feet across and this table is 8 feet long. So there's our 10 feet to cover the back wall from left to right. And then this starts in the back corner and moves forward 4 feet. And we put the high boy table in front of it. On the left, we put the other tables. So we have a little bit of an asymmetrical look. And then the chair goes right here. We always want to keep 2 feet of open space right here. And this allows our booth workers to stand here and engage with people walking down the aisles. The shows have very strict rules that your booth workers must stay within your booth and to not interfere with the flow of traffic. And in many times of days, it will feel like a traffic jam. And so we don't want to get a reprimand for not obeying those rules. And by keeping this space open here in front, that allows us to do that quite easily. Now, this is the same floor plan, but now I'm standing in the booth and I'm looking at the back wall. So before it was a bird's eye view, now it's I guess a person's eye view. So what we're going to do is use purse panels, and I'll be telling you how and from whom you will be getting purse panels if you don't already have them. So we're going to put 2 purse panels on the far left and then on the far right. And each one of these panels should be able to hold 7 purses, which gives us a total of 28 purses hanging on the back wall. We're going to center a quilted So Powerful logo. These are beautifully made, and they will be shipped to you as a loaner for your show, and you'll have directions and a prepaid label as to who you're going to ship it on to next, but that's centered there. And then large format photos will hang beneath them, and you'll use long picture wire to hang these. And there's a little more detail about this coming up in the checklist. So they're centered here. So we have a symmetrical look on the back wall. This space is open here because you're going to have display merchandise that you're going to be putting on the table. And we're leaving how you dress the top of the table totally up to you, whether you put the books on the back table or on the left, how tall you stack them. We want you to use your creativities and your ideas. Okay, I'm in the booth, and now I've turned to my left, and this is the wall I see on the left. This is a very poor representation of a beautifully quilted photo that's been produced by Elizabeth Mittman. And this will be in the packet that you receive along with the quilted logo. Here's our rationale for dressing this left wall like this. In the United States, when you're walking in a crowded aisle like we do at a quilt show, traffic moves just like cars. People walk on the right side of the aisle. So as they're walking down the aisle, the first thing they see in your booth is the left wall, okay? Because that's how they're approaching. Now, in the morning or in the evening, when it's not so crowded, they'll be strolling by and they could easily see the right wall because they would be coming from the other direction and they won't be blocked by the crowd going the other way. But we're optimizing it for crowded conditions, but it still looks great regardless of how big the crowd is. So we have this beautifully quilted photo that goes here. And I mean, it's a quilt, but it looks like a photo, and those red lines are just supposed to represent that it's quilted. You will place your purse panels first, then put the quilted photo over it, and then that leaves room for 4 purses on each of these 3 panels. Then you'll put the additional 5 panels to the right. Each of those can hold 7 purses. And so that will give you a total of 47 purses on display on the left wall. Here is the chair. Here is your table sideways, the 4-foot table. And then this represents the side of the 8-foot table. Now let me take you back here to the overview. So we're looking in this direction toward the left wall. So chair, side of table, and then you're seeing this part right here. So I hope that makes sense to you. So that's the left wall. The next we're going to look at is the right wall. And this layout was revised on July 9th, 2021. If you have a version of the handbook that's dated before that, you should refer to this version to have the most up to date. So this wall starts out in the upper left. I'm in the booth now looking at the right wall. In the upper left, you will have a cardboard sign provided by the show, and it's usually something like 8 inches tall by about 42 inches wide. That's pretty standard from show to show. The shows require you to have it because it has consistently from booth to booth the name of your company or business, in this case, So Powerful, and then it has your booth number. Now, many people scope out which booths they're going to visit by booth number. So we want to have that sign up so people will recognize that we're booth 1, 2, 3, whatever our booth number happens to be, but also to be in compliance with show rules. So we'll put the show sign up in the upper left corner. And then we're going to have 2 additional, but different than the ones that are on the back wall, 2 additional large format photos, and we'll hang them one over the other, and that will put them above the level of the table. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little fuzzy looking square down here in the lower right corner of each of these large format photos, and those represent QR codes. So those will be pre-printed on the photos, and visitors to our booth can use their phone and just aim their camera at that QR code, and it will open the application and it will open the website for So Powerful right there. So they'll be able to see it. You'll see that we have one of your folding tables, your 4 foot by 2 foot table right here, with the high boy table to the right, and then nothing here at the edge because that's part of our open space. We have 5 purse panels here. 3 of them have 7 purses on them, and 2 of them have 5. So that's to accommodate this tall table that will be blocking some of the view. So the total panels on the right wall will be 31. So now we've got the back, the left, and the right, and the total for all 3 walls is 106 purses. Now, you might be thinking, well, I'm not making 106 purses. I'm not the Colorado sisters. Well, this is what you do. See how many purses you have. Then contact each of your booth volunteers to see how many they have. You might even have people in your community that you know are purse makers who are not able to volunteer in the booth. So from the time you become a show manager until the end of your show, you will ask this group of people to not send in their purses to Seattle, but to collect them for display in the booth. And we're going to ask you to use your creativity, and maybe you want to have an all pink strip, or maybe you want to arrange them all differently, or maybe you want to have a panel that has only the intermediate, or maybe you want to intermix those. It's totally up to you how you display them. We just ask that it be attractive and eye-catching, and that somebody walking down the aisle would want to stop and see. So we're not asking you to make 106 purses, but we're asking you to just ask around, and you would be surprised how easy it is. I'm working right now with Jan Paul, who is the show manager for the Dallas show that's coming up as I record this. And within 24 hours, she had more than 106 purses just by doing a quick email to the people who were going to be volunteering in the booth. So very easy. And I'm not going to say it's very easy. It takes a little bit of proactivity on your part, but again, we're not asking you to make 106 purses. And in fact, we would like the variety of approaches and decorating styles and color choices that you'll get when you have a variety of people submitting their purses. So there we go. Okay, here's option 2 that we're not going to go over in this video, but it is here. It has the same information. It has, by the way, here's Kathleen Broadfoot and her sister Carol when they were volunteering at the So Expo in Atlanta in 2020, which happened to be shut down early because of COVID. But there they are, and you can see that you can barely see over here on the side, but this booth does not have the tall wall. So We selected them for that picture. So this has the same thing, the back, the left, the right. And then here is a corner booth. And again, this was before our standards were set, but you get the idea. It's two sides, and here's what that would look like from a bird's eye view. Left wall, back wall, left. I'm sorry. Back, right, and oh, I missed it. Back. Oh, back, left, and back, right. I was looking for a third wall, but there isn't one because it's a corner. So there we go. So you will find your standards in here. Now, you might get to your show and your 10 by 10 booth might end up being 11 by 11 or 10 by 11 or 9.5 by 10. Obviously, you're going to have to use your creativity and get things arranged the best you can. This is a blueprint. And if you watch any home improvement shows, they have all the blueprints in the world and they always run into a hiccup. And I'm not saying you're going to, but if you do, use your good judgment and use this as a guideline and, you know, make the booth attractive and creative using all of your talents there. Okay. Those were standards. Okay, the next section talks about supplies. And here's a picture of Cinnamon, and she's holding out a purse that was decorated with Renaissance ribbon. And here, this was at a show in Seattle a couple of years ago. Here in this basket up here, she has some fat quarters. I think she has some charms. She has some strapping. So we're working very hard to be able to get those kinds of supplies to you. The earlier your show is in 2021, the fewer of those supplies you're going to have. But as time goes on, we're going to have more and more of those for you. But that was just a picture of Cinnamon showing off what we're hoping that our booth supply options are going to look like. When you submit your show manager supply request form, that's what we have available is going to be coming to you through that. So let's look at this high level list of who's going to display what or provide what. So purse display panels with hooks. We have several sets and I have a whole schedule of who's going to do what. If you're watching this and you've not been contacted, you do not need to make purse panels for the 2021 shows. We have that all covered. We have one person who is making them. So if you know who you are and you're making them, don't stop. But if we've not contacted you about making them, it's really not necessary. And we have a whole schedule of how this is all going to work. Purses for display, ideally collected locally. As I said earlier, it's possible that So Powerful could send some to you, but would really like to avoid the shipping costs. And part of being a show manager is reaching out to people in the community. And in general, people are usually very flattered to have their purses on display. So I don't think you're going to have any trouble doing this. But if you find you can't, or you're just running into roadblocks, give us a call. We'll make it happen. Merchandise for donation, we talked about that just a moment ago. So Powerful is going to provide what this is going to be, and it's going to be provided to you based on the expected attendance at the show, which is going to require a little bit of research on your part. In some cases, the shows provide this as a marketing tool, and in other cases, you're going to have to do a little bit of noodling around to actually find it. We also ask that each table have an African-themed topper over the black tablecloths, and we're going to get to black tablecloths here in a second. You can buy fabric like that at many fabric stores, and it's usually something like a 45-inch by 45-inch square that you can put on the diagonal, or you can put it as a little short topper over your long tablecloth and put it on there lengthwise. But it's usually just a piece of fabric, and you can use the salvage if you don't want to take the time to hem it. But again, we do want the booth to look nice. So if you possibly can, do hem up those four sides. A little while ago in Facebook, Daryl Perry is one of our purse makers, posted a Facebook comment and photo of a shop that she found that specialized in African fabrics. And it had very unique and beautiful fabrics. And if you're so inclined, go look up that post in the Facebook Purse Project group. And, you might find something that you like there, or you might be able to just get something locally. Okay, we do ask that all of the tables in our booth have black tablecloths. The drapes may vary in color from show to show. Typically they're black, sometimes they're white, maroon, blue, gray. But regardless of that, we want our purse panels to be black and our tablecloths to be black. Now, I can help you figure out what size tablecloths you need. You can use tablecloths, fabrics, black sheets, anything that looks true black. And the way you figure out your tablecloth size is you measure from the floor to the top of the table, across the table, and down to the floor again. So there's 3 measurements to get the width, and you do the same for the length, from the floor to the top, across the length of that table, and down. So let's talk about an 8-foot table. An 8-foot table is 90 inches. It's 30 inches up, 30 inches across, and 30 inches down. That's 90 inches front to back. And the width is 30 inches up, 8 feet down, and 30 inches, and that's 156 inches. So a floor length tablecloth for an 8-foot table is 90 inches by 156. If you have a tablecloth that's a little bit shorter, because all these tables are going to be butted up together, where it's short doesn't show where the tables meet. So you can do some finagling, if that's a real word, that's my grandmother's word, to not have the tablecloths go all the way to the floor in the back, because they're going to be up against curtains, or on the sides because they're going to be adjoining another table. And you just make it on all the way to the floor on the part that you can see. You're going to be storing items under the tables, your extra merchandise, your tubs and boxes that you brought things in. You'll probably want to keep a stepladder underneath there in case you have to rearrange some things that you can't reach during the show. Okay, the folding tables. We will ask you to bring those. You would be surprised how many people already have tables like this. I bought some a few years ago, and I can't tell you how many times a year I actually use these tables for non-quilt show activities. And they're great when I have, kiddos coming to visit for a dinner, or to do my extra little Christmas display. When I need extra room for cutting something out that's long, I just pop up that table. So if you don't have one, it's not a bad investment, but you would be surprised if you ask around of the other volunteers, of your neighbors, of people that you go to church with, to see if you can't borrow rather than purchase. But we do have information in the checklist with a suggested vendor and price. And I maybe suggested is wrong, is that we found a vendor and a price. You are more than welcome to buy from wherever you would like if you choose to buy. The large format photos will be shipped directly to you from Costco. So we will be ordering them and shipping them to you. You will be providing us with your shipping address and the last date that you can receive items before you want to be off to your quilt show. For all we know, you're going to go up to your quilt show a week early and stay with your sister. And, we're looking at the quilt show date thinking, oh, the quilt show's not till Thursday. We could have her receive it on Monday and you might be long gone. So we're going to work with you. We're going to ask you to think about some dates so that we don't have to send things overnight and that we get it to you in a timely way. The quilted large format photos that you saw in the standard booth layout will be provided by So Powerful, along with the logo banner. Some people, and I'm going to say I'm guilty as charged, have created printed vinyl banners in the past to use in the booth, and they are no longer approved. Please do not use them. If you do a little setup in your church vestibule or at the farmer's market, or, if you're asked to give a little talk locally and you have one of these, I say go for it, but it's not part of our standard at a quilt show. Not when and the demarcation is, if So Powerful pays the entrance fee, then these are the standards. If you're setting something up on your own locally, that's either free or that you've paid to get into, then whether or not you use these standards are up to you. But again, to the best of your ability, please follow them so that we do have a standard presentation. Okay, I keep turning the page accidentally, thinking I'm moving down my list. Donation collections. We are going to have a little, it's very little, scanner that you just swipe the credit card, and then through Bluetooth technology, it will transmit to an app on a cell phone. And all we have to do is make sure that at least one person on every shift has downloaded the app, so that we can transmit credit card donations to our bank account. And it's very easy to do. And the show manager will just need to make sure that it's charged overnight, that this little swiper is charged overnight. And then there'll be a little charger that you can bring with you that will be provided probably for the second half of the day in case the charge gets low. If we have a whole lot of donations, and it keeps running like that. And then you'll need to have some kind of a collection device for cash donations. And we'll see how cash comes in this year versus prior year, where I think a lot of people, when we weren't out shopping, we weren't carrying a lot of cash. So we'll see how that translates into quilt shows. But some people decorate a bowl or a jar. I think mine was just plain. And I put a little bit of, I call it seed money. I put 4 $5 bills of my own money in my donation jar to start with. And then there's my daily financial report. I recorded that as the seed money starter. And then let's say I put in $20. Let's say we collected $200 in cash. At the end of the day, now I have $220 in the jar. $20 of that is mine. So I take it out. And so then for tomorrow, I want $20 of seed money in there to get us started in the morning. Because if you see an empty jar that's for donations, people they don't want to be the first one. They don't want to put $1 in if everybody else is putting in 20, but they don't want to put 20 in if you're expecting $1. So $5 is sort of a good way to start, and you can make change easily with the $5. But the next morning, you're going to take that $200 that belongs to So Powerful. 180 of it is going to be in the lockbox, and 20 of it is going to be your seed money for the next day. And you're going to record that as seed money, and then you'll collect more money. Let's say you collect another 200. So day 1, you collected 200, and day 2, you collected 200. And don't count the seed money in your total for the day. You want to make sure you have 400 and not double count that. So that's just a little tip that probably isn't on the tip list because it was too complicated to explain. Our contact information for attendees, there's going to be a QR code printed on those large format photos, and people that go there will be getting the pattern. And to get the pattern, we request your contact information, and that's how we're going to be getting it. So we don't want to slow people down and ask them to fill out forms. There won't be any prize drawings. There won't be anything for attendees to write down. We want them to admire the purses, ask us questions, and not be worried about doing all these kinds of things. The only slowdown will be is if they want to make a donation for merchandise or just a straight up donation. We will also ask you just to bring some miscellaneous office supplies, even though our guests aren't writing things down, you may want to write something down. You may start talking to an attendee and find out that they have an amazing quilt shop near where one of our regional coordinators lives out of town, and you want to get that person's contact information. You can write yourself a note about that. So just having that and having to make adjustments to the schedules, it's just handy to have. Printed pattern booklets. We are only going to be offering the beginning purse pattern booklet in the booth. Just for simplicity's sake is the only reason we're doing this. The people who, based on experience where we had both the intermediate and the beginner, we found that the demand for the beginner far outweighed for the intermediate. And just to keep things simple, we're going to just have one pattern booklet. People can admire intermediate purses on the wall, and you can say this pattern is also available for free, but today we're offering for donation the beginner pattern booklet. Now, where do you get these beginner pattern booklets? We're asking you to ask friends, family, and maybe somebody who has a printing company to print these up as a donation to So Powerful. They become extremely heavy to print and rather to ship. And so if you can secure them locally, that is really the ideal situation. For the most part, people that just have a straight up copier, you're going to just download the pattern from the website, make sure that it's reproduced with that 1-inch square at truly the 1 inch, and you just staple it in the corner. And those will be available as a pre-printed pattern booklet for a $10 donation. Also available for free that they can download themselves, but just for the convenience of having it, they can make a donation at the show. If you have someone who has a professional printing shop or a large format printer where they can print 11 by 17 and put it in a booklet format with the staples down the middle, we have a different layout for that because you don't print the pages in order. They've got to match up, page 1 and page 30 match up and so on. So if that is who your donor is, please contact me and let me know, and we'll get the right booklet for you in a format that they can use for printing. Okay, and I don't know that I put it on here, but we have the We Are So Powerful book, 2nd edition. That's going to be part of your supply form. And when you tell us what your last day is to receive shipments and expected attendance at the show, that will trigger an order of appropriate number of books that will be shipped to your house. And it works the same with the flyers or the handbills. They're about this big. They're for handout at the show, and we'll probably send more than you need, but you'll find many, many uses for them after the show, I promise, if you have leftovers. So those will be coming to you. Okay, next up is how do you get all of this? Sourcing the supplies. In the next section of the handbook, it's called Documents and Forms, and it has a link that you complete, and you will get an email confirmation when you fill out that survey and supply order form. You'll also be able to revise your request because you'll save the original confirming email. There's a link there that says edit my form, and you may fill this form out early before you know all the answers, and many of the answers have a choice of unsure or unknown, and you can answer that way just so you can progress through the form. But by the time of your show, you need to have the answers to all of those questions. So, and we're going to go over that in some detail in part number 3. Place your orders to allow sufficient time for shipping, and we're not going to be shipping any merchandise or any of our shipments to the venue where the Quilt Show is held. Many venues offer this as a service, but they charge an exorbitant amount of money to receive it and warehouse it for you until you get there. So we're not going to do that. We're going to ship it to the address that you provide on your supply order form. Okay, so let's talk about what what you will find. So there is the link to the show manager survey and requisition form, and you will just click right here and you get a link to that form. And that's part 3 of this video. And the following documents and forms are needed. And that's going to be covered in part 2. And you'll click here and you'll go to a folder called Your Forms. And there are more than 7, because some of these have multiples that you're going to need. But for booth workers, you're going to find an orientation and welcome agenda, and we'll talk about that. There's 2 different FAQ documents, one about purses and one about So Powerful. And then to help you and your booth workers know what to say, there's a document that has various, we call them pitches. Some of them are 1 or 2 sentences. Some of them are paragraphs if you have somebody who wants to be engaged. Also in this same folder, there are some forms. There's a blank form called Purses Received at Show. People who live in your local community, rather than mail their purses, can bring them to the Quilt Show and drop them off at our booth, where we will collect them and we will ship them back to So Powerful for them, saving the purse maker the cost of postage. So Powerful will reimburse the show manager for the cost of shipping all the purses at the end of the show. So we do want to keep track of those. We're asking people in our newsletter, when we talk about this, to include their packing slip with it. Now, they may or may not do that. And so just as sort of a double check, we just want to have you just write down Mary Smith 4 purses. I mean, it should be very quick and simple, but at the same time, we just want to have a record, because somebody's worked very hard on making those and entrusting us with doing those. There are various donation signs. All of them have wording that starts out with 4x6. They're printed 4x6, and just put some colorful paper in your printer and just print using black ink. And you've got some little signs that you can put up by the books or whatever other merchandise we have. There's a financial report that you will fill out every day, and it will ask how much cash was collected and how much was collected by credit cards. I haven't seen the app that shows us what's going on with the credit cards, but I assume the show manager would be able to get a daily total for that. And then, just in case you want to check and say, what did I sign up for? The job description is out there as well. This page in the handbook gives you the link to the checklist. Now, this is the checklist. When you're loading your car, you're going to go, do I have this? Have I done this? Do. Now, obviously, you don't want to wait until the day you're loading your car to look at this list. This is just, it's almost like a little project plan, and it will tell you all the tasks that you need to do, all the things you need to gather, and some other items that are optional that will make life in the booth much more enjoyable for you. So the last page of that document also lists these forms that I just mentioned before. Okay, and all of these documents are going to live on a place called Dropbox, which you don't have to worry about. All you have to do is follow these links. So if you're the show manager for the Northwest Quilting Expo, you click here and it will take you to a subdirectory. And every time there's a document associated with your show, I put it in this subdirectory. So when a person volunteers to be a booth worker, their little form with their contact information goes in there. When we pay the invoice, it goes in there. If there's any insurance or tax information that the show is going to be requiring, when we get that all sorted out, that goes in there. There might be a parking map. There might be a list of nearby restaurants. There might be a list of nearby hotels. There might be some marketing materials. So all of that stuff that I have access to will go in there. Now, don't think this is the only place that you're going to get information about your show, because I'm going to encourage you to go to the website for the organization sponsoring your show and learn about the show. Look at the pictures of the shows from, well, not last year, but the year before. Read up what kind of people attend the show, what are the demographics, what are people interested in, what are their ages, if that's in there. Anything, what are like train others classes that are offered. The more you know about the show where you're going to manage the booth, the more effective you're going to be as a show manager. So those are all right here on this second page of checklist. Here are the tips. It turned out to be in really small type because there's a whole bunch of them. The one about wearing comfortable shoes. I said, not cute shoes, not new shoes, comfortable shoes. But it talks about storage bins. It talks about setup day being hectic and making sure that you don't come alone in your own car because somebody's got to move the stuff and somebody's going to have to move the car. Don't forget to include people in your setup and tear down schedule. They don't need to have purse making skills to do either one of those. They just need to be willing participants. So if somebody says, oh gosh, I wish I could help Sew Powerful, but I don't sew, you've got the perfect job for them. They're going to be hanging purses. They're going to be stuffing purses with tissue paper or empty plastic bags to give them some structure. They're going to be putting tablecloths on tables, all kinds of stuff that don't require sewing skills. Tear down day is really hectic because setup is usually over like a 10-hour period. Tear down, everything starts at one time. I do want to tell you that every single show requires that you be open for business, that you not begin packing up anything until the bell rings at the end of the show. All the rules basically say if you do that, you can be barred from future shows. Whether they would do that or not, I don't know. And you'll see other booth people doing it from other companies. That's them. That's not us. The rule says we can't do it. So if the show ends at 4 o'clock, at 4:01, you're tearing down the booth. But at 3:59, you're greeting people walking down the aisle. And then the credit card charger needs to be charged up every night. You'll also have a cash box that you'll take with you every night too. So those two things can go together. Here is our directory, and it has our name and what time zone we're in so that you have some idea of whether you're calling somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning and whether they would answer or not. But this is sort of, why you would call any of these people. Although you could call anybody for anything really. I mean, if the first person you try that you think you should call is not available, keep going down the list. Here's email, but if it's urgent, call their phone. You're out there on the front line and we're here to help you. If we're not there, please do this. I've got Sue's mailing address because that financial report is supposed to be mailed to Sue. So that's her mailing address right there. One of the things I think was on the tip list is be friendly with other vendors, other booth people. You never know when a partnership is going to develop. Early before the show started, back in 2018, Sue Kirby was walking around and struck up a conversation with the Baby Lock people, which resulted in donations of sewing machines to our seamstresses in Zambia, them sponsoring Sew Powerful Sewing Days in all of their stores through all of their dealers that sell Baby Lock machines back in 2019. And it just started with a casual conversation. We've had major fabric donations. We've had trims and all kinds of things donated to us. So it doesn't hurt to go and show some interest in what everybody else is doing and for them to learn about Sew Powerful. Now, you're not allowed to go solicit. This is visiting, and it's usually done before or after hours. because usually everybody's too busy with talking with attendees to be able to do that. And thank you and have a great show. So this is the end of part 1 of the handbook. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to go on to part 2, which is the checklist and various forms. So thank you so much. Welcome back. We are now in part 2 of the preparation video for show managers, and we're going to be talking about checklists and forms. So let me show you what that looks like. This is a form that's set up somewhat like a project plan. This column, there's a task column, a due date, and a status. This is totally up to you to set your own due dates and sort of make your own status, but it's here in case you just want to keep track of what's done and what is yet to be done, and just to sort of go through this list and give yourself some target dates as to when you want to have everything finished so that you're not scrambling at the last minute. So let's start with these tasks. We'll just go in order. They're not particularly in chronological order of when you should do them, but even in order of importance, but they're on here. So we'll just go through it. We always have a donor dinner, or sometimes it's a luncheon for the people who work in the booth, the show manager, anybody from So Powerful that's come in from out of town, and then as an invitation to local purse makers or local donors, people of interest to So Powerful. Everyone pays for their own dinner, but it is the show manager's responsibility to select a restaurant and, if possible, make a reservation and pick a date when most people will be there. Sometimes doing it the afternoon or evening of the setup works out. But if you have people coming in at the back half of the week, you know, it gets tricky. So you'll just have to sort of look at your schedule and know when people are going to be in town and pick the best date. You might have to ask about food allergies or preferences. It's not as easy as it used to be to make a reservation at a restaurant, but it's always fun. And if it's possible to get, without incurring extra cost, to be able to get a separate little room or at least one long table so everybody can feel like we're all part of the family, all there together. So that it's always a lot of fun. The second thing is to staff the booth. And you have the replies from people who have filled out booth worker forms from our website. And those are all being put in that subdirectory that I will show you in just a minute with some examples. But everybody that fills out one of those, the copy comes to me and I move that over into your show directory so that you have the contact information for everybody who's applied to be a booth worker for your show. You'll have those people, but you'll also need to put out a call to other purse makers. And a good way to do that is to use the Facebook Purse Project group. And that's a good way to say, hey, if you're going to be in Indianapolis, October 8th and 9th, we could use your help in the booth. It's a lot of fun. The shifts are 3 hours long. Send me a private message if you're interested. We'll get you going. We would like those people to fill out a form. The application forms now include a release of liability checkbox, and it would just be nice to have those for people who are going to be working in the booth, but it's not a requirement. If you just know somebody who wants to do it and you have their contact information, there you go. Show badges. Each booth normally comes with a badge or 3, usually 3 for a 10 by 10 booth, but not always. So once you figure out what your schedule is, we need to know how many badges you need. I will contact the show management and ask if we can get generic badges that say something like So Powerful Staff. And that way badges could be traded because, you know, we don't need to spend additional money, but we don't want to penalize people either. So by volunteering at the booth, we would like them to be able to enjoy the Quilt Show because the quilts are always so spectacular, but also to be able to shop the other vendor booths as well. And that's also an opportunity for the booth workers to talk about Sew Powerful. So when you figure out your schedule, we need to start working on badges and figuring out how many we need to purchase. And sometimes they can be, they require names, and sometimes they can be generic. Know the show rules. In your show directory box, directory structure that I'm going to show you is a list of show rules. And it'll be things like nothing can protrude out into the aisles. You can't tear down before the start. You can't use electricity. If somebody has a box that runs underneath and you see their electric box next door to you, you cannot use their electricity to charge your phone. So things like that will be in there. But importantly, there'll be things like that the show may or may not require us to be insured, and it's usually for $1 million. And we may be required to name the show management company as a co-insured. That's all in the rules. The wording is there, and there's a place on the survey form where you'll give us that information so that we can get going on getting the insurance. Now, you might be thinking $1 million insurance is really expensive. It's not inexpensive, but it's not that expensive because we're talking about 3 or 4 days, 5 days worth of coverage. So it's a little different than ongoing, and it's we've never had a claim, but frequently it's required. Okay, that's insurance. Know the rules. In some places, because we're going to be not exchanging, but asking for money in the form of donations, we may need to prove our nonprofit status. That will be in the rules. And if you don't see it, let me know that, and I will just verify with them. In some places, I think the state of Indiana might be one, the state of Texas is another. You have to apply for a sales tax certificate and then not charge sales tax because we're nonprofits. So there are some legal ramifications to having an exhibit booth in a state and then having money come into our booth. So we're going to ask you to study those rules, and there's a place on the form to indicate this. And if you're not sure, let's look at those rules together and let's be absolutely sure, because you don't want to get to the show and then be surprised that you're being prohibited from setting up the booth because we're missing some kind of legal paperwork. There will be a Zoom call to train the booth workers, and it will be about an hour. And once you get your schedule together, we'll do this. And it's usually maybe 2 weeks before your show. You don't want to do it too early and have people forget what they're supposed to say. But we have a sample agenda in the forms that you'll be looking at, and you'll create a packet and you'll email it to everyone about a week before the training. And it will include things like the FAQs, the show pitches, a parking map, how to get to the donor dinner and information about that. And we will have that meeting. You're free to conduct it. I can help you conduct it, but I will set it up and I will be part of that meeting for each of you. I created something, for lack of a better term, called important document folder. And I just went to Staples and I bought one of those cardboard type folder things. And I put stuff in there that I needed to be able to put my hands on like that. And it was my daily financial report, the schedule of workers with all their contact information. If somebody gets stuck in traffic, you need to be able to call somebody or ask somebody to be able to stay on their shift a little bit longer. The FAQs. In your rules, you might find that tablecloths may be required to be fire retardant. This is pretty unusual, but we have come across it. I have a way of dealing with that. And if you have that situation, you need to let me know as soon as possible. I have fire retardant tablecloths here and a certificate that should satisfy the fire marshal in the venue. But I have to say, I think this is the craziest requirement I've ever heard of, to have tablecloths fire retardant when the whole show is made up of fabric quilts hanging that are not fire retardant. So I really think hopefully they're going to get, think this through and realize this is the least of anybody's worries is what's on the tablecloths, but we have come across it. And then this is where I have my proof of insurance and my tax compliance. I might also put like the copy of the contract in there that shows how many badges we get that we're paid for. If we paid for anything special. In a couple of shows, we've paid to have 8-foot walls instead of 3-foot walls. So having that documentation handy and with you when you check in will be very valuable. Okay, next thing is start gathering the contents for your booth. This is your checklist of everything that you're going to start getting ready before you leave. So your important documents folder, or whatever you want to call it, the We Are So Powerful books that are going to be sent to you, the flyers that are going to be sent to you, the pattern booklets that you're going to have donated, and a good quantity is somewhere between 50 and 100. If your show is small, 50 is probably enough. If you're at one of the larger shows, then you're going to want to have more. Then here's a comment about the intermediate pattern booklet. For simplicity reasons only, we're not going to offer this at the booth. The pattern is still available, still a standard, ongoing. I don't want to start any rumors, but just for the simplicity of asking people to donate something to us to make all these pattern booklets, we're keeping it just as the beginner pattern booklet. And, that's why it's on here as your checklist, that you don't have to bring these. Tablecloths and overlays. Now, is the venue going to provide that tablecloth for your 8-foot table, or do you need to provide it? That should be in your rules. If you need flame retardant tablecloths, come see me. Then here's some fabric information about fabric squares for your African print. And I just take the width of the fabric and square it. So 45 inches, 48 inches, 60 inches, whatever it is, just making a little square topper just for color. And you're going to have 4 tables in there with African fabric on it. It could be 4 tables with the same fabric, or it could be 4 different fabrics, whatever you like. So again, use your creativity and dress up the booth the way you like it. Now we're talking about tables that usually the convention center will provide an 8-foot table. Sometimes it's a 6-foot table. If it is, we live with it and are a little more concise with how we arrange what goes on top. If you ask around and absolutely can't find anybody that has a 4-foot by 24-inch table, you can buy them. Walmart has that table for $39.99 each. I think somebody told me they found something similar, or I guess identical in size, on Amazon for less. It depends on whether or not you have Prime and have to pay the shipping, whether that's a good deal or not. And then Walmart also has the highboy tables, and theirs are 31 inches round and 42 inches tall for $35 when I checked a few weeks ago. So some supplies are still in high demand and short supply because of COVID. So give yourself plenty of time to find these things, because they may or may not just be as readily available as we might have been used to in the past. Purse panels for display. We have enough, and I have a plan for getting these panels to each of the shows without anybody making them, except for one person who I've already had a conversation with. She already has everything cut out, so we're just going to have her do that. So you will be able to read through this. And then if you end up with option 2 or 3, where you are required or suggested to have a coat tree, I found a nice one that looks wooden and it comes apart for easy transport on Amazon for $24. And there's a link there. The large format photos, they will be shipped to you and paid for by So Powerful. Now, here's sort of the weird thing. They come in duplicates. So you're going to end up getting, if they come to your house, you're going to end up getting 8 of these, and you want to take the 4 unique ones for your booth. We've sort of got it figured out that what's going to happen to the duplicates. In some case, you're going to share it with somebody else who's in your booth, who's going to be a show manager for an upcoming show. We've got that sort of all worked out, but don't be alarmed when you get 8 photos or none. If you get none, it's because you're getting your 4 photos from somebody who got the duplicates. So I'll get that all worked out, and I'll communicate that schedule to everybody. They just come as rectangles, 36 by 24. You're going to either add grommets or adhesive picture hangers to these. Now, I took adhesive picture, I had grommets on the top and adhesive picture hangers on the bottom. And I went to the office supply store, and you can buy, you know, when you have a binder and you open up the rings, you can buy just the rings. So I bought rings. And so that's how I put the ring in the grommet at the top of the picture that was on the bottom. And then I put this thing that is exactly called adhesive picture hanger. It's clear. The part of it sticks to the back of the picture. And then there's a little bit that has a zigzag and it sticks below. And then I just put that ring on there, and then they were like attached to 2 pictures attached to each other. And then I talk about picture wire for hanging the top photo up to the top. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, large quilted photos and quilted So Powerful logo. These will ship to you. There's going to be a group A and a group B, and the group A people will, the first person will get it, and it will ship 3 more times and then back to an original destination. The same for the group B people. And then Phoenix ends up in its own little special category, and we'll handle that separately with that show manager. These are going to come rolled up, but you're going to need wooden dowels, because if we just hang them, you know, fabric is going to dip down. It's not going to look good. So we are asking you to purchase 3 wooden dowels, 36 inches long by 38 inches in diameter, or up to a 1/2 inch diameter. The 1/2 inch diameter works. The 3/8 inch diameter dowel is 79 cents at Michael's. The fatter one, the 1/2 inch one, is $1.49. So you're going to need 3 to be able to hang these up. The quilted logo will require 2, and you're going to like put them in this way, and they're going to overlap in the middle. Maybe put a twist tie or something there, but you're going to use your hooks. It's very clever how Leslie has designed this, and it just hooks on the back on the end. And convention hooks will be provided to use for hanging these. So it's really nice. All you have to do is spend a couple of dollars here to get your dowels, but you'll need 3, 36 inches long by 3/8 to 1/2 inch in diameter. Aprons, unless otherwise noted, advised in advance, booth workers should wear a black So Powerful apron. You need to request those. They're on the show manager survey form. And people who have worked booths before may already own an apron. Otherwise, we're going to send you a packet of aprons that is the maximum number of people that you would have working on any one shift. So if you have 3 people working on a shift, you're going to get 3 aprons. And we're going to, they'll probably be in that bundle of things that comes with the quilted logo. If somebody owns their own apron, we're not going to ask them to share, but otherwise those 3 aprons, they'll just be, when your shift is over, take off the apron, the next shift wears it. So maybe come up with a designated place to have them left overnight, so the first shift of the next day knows where to find their aprons. So I personally purchase those and embroider those. So in the past, we've given them away, but as we get more and more people, that's becoming a little more challenging. So anyway, that's about the aprons. We did one time have somebody who for religious reasons, had to wear some kind of religious garb and they couldn't wear the apron over it. That was very unusual circumstance. Doubtful you'll come across that, but of course, if that's their situation, then there you go. Okay, this says point of sale credit card reader. I think point of sale might be an exaggeration of what this is. It's a little triangle, and it used to be like something called Square or PayPal here that you could plug into your phone. Phones don't have a jack anymore that you used to plug your headphones in, where these little devices would connect. So now we're going to use Bluetooth. So we'll have the device, we'll swipe it through Bluetooth. It will transmit to a phone of a worker in the booth, and they'll have the app on the phone, and the person will just plug in their credit card information will already be in there. They'll choose the item that they're making a donation for or the donation amount, and we'll also ask for their email address, which I believe will be optional. And then just transmit, and boom, it goes through and it confirms it on your phone. And then the show manager will be able to get some kind of report at the end of the day that shows how much we've received in donations for that day through credit card. So it is a loaner item. It has to be charged every night, as well as the charger needs to be recharged. And then it will end up in that bundle with the quilted logo and the quilted large format photo, and probably the aprons that will go from show to show in either group A or group B. And you'll have the information and instructions that come with it. Picture wire. You'll be using this to hang large format photos. Any place that sells picture hooks has that for sale. It's not terribly expensive. It's usually like, a silvery gray color. So it blends in nicely with the drapes in the background, and it's twistable and can be cut with scissors, which make sure you have a pair of non-fabric scissors with you among your office supplies. You'll need it. I found zip ties and duct tape to be extremely helpful. And if you have a padded floor, you'll want to use duct tape to make sure that doesn't curl up and allow somebody to trip coming in and out of our booth. Basic tools, you'll be surprised how helpful it would be to have a hammer, screwdrivers, pliers, tape measure, and a small level. If you are like me and got a laser level for Christmas, man, am I a nerd that I got a laser level for Christmas. But that would make it very easy to get those purse panels and your photos straight on the wall, because when you stand back and everything is going in a different direction, it's not a good look. You'll also want to bring some kind of a step ladder. Everything at the top that connects to the top is 8 feet tall, and last time I checked, none of us are professional basketball players, so you're going to need that. Depending on what type of purse panels you have, will come with either the convention hooks, which are just sort of like S-shaped hooks, or shower curtain type hooks. And your purse panels will come with that. And we'll try and throw in a few extra, because you're going to need those to connect your picture wire. The pipe around your booth is totally covered with, it's like a curtain with a casing. So don't think that you're going to be attaching anything directly to the pipe. Everything has to hook over the drape that's on the back and the sides. If you want to buy your own convention hooks, they're not terribly expensive. You can buy 100 for about $20 from, and I bought mine from this place right here. There might be other places as well. You're going to want a basket to hold flyers and merchandise displays. Again, we're trying to avoid plastic. Michael's has wooden crates. Sometimes they're on sale for $10 to $20 each. Here's a link to something right here. You might have something suitable, and it doesn't have to be this, but again, something that looks a little rustic and a way for displaying merchandise is always helpful. Now, you can also stack things on the table, but having some crates also is a nice look. You are going to want to have I loved having 45-gallon clear plastic bags. You can buy 100 at Costco for $23. When people brought their purses into the show, the last thing I needed was about 15 boxes under the tables because I was just running out of room. So the clear plastic bags are very helpful. Be careful that they don't get run over in the melee going out at the end. But when you're trying to put everything back in your car, and now you have all these extra purses that you didn't come with because people have dropped them off, having them in the bag means you can tuck them into nooks and crannies in your car. And what I did was the ones we didn't add to the display, or when we rotated ones out, I put some purses in a plastic bag and took the extra ones back to my hotel room every night. So it wasn't overwhelming the booth with extra stuff. Business cards. If you are a regional coordinator and you're in your marketplace, hand out your cards. If that's not the case, let me know. And I've got lots of business cards that I could send out that if people wanted to contact me. There are also something brand new called communication cards that are available from the So Powerful menu that you can print yourself. And you find it on the website, the sopowerful.org website. Look under resources and then printables. And so that's a nice thing too, if it's your local marketplace and you want people to be able to get in touch with you directly because they want to do an event or work with you or talk with you about chapters. Here we go. That's right there. A donation jar. I had, it's called a rose bowl. It had a flower arrangement in it, probably from years ago. It's just a clear big glass bowl, which was good for donations. But Leslie made a jar, a big jar with a big mouth, and she decorated the outside, and it was really cute. She used some burlap ribbon and some other bows and buttons, and it was really a fun jar. So use your creativity and do whatever you would like. If people need change, they want to donate $25 and they only have two 20s, give them $15 change back if they ask for it. If they want a pattern booklet, it's $10 and they say, I only have 5. It's a suggested donation of $10. So we'll thank you very much for your $5 donation. So we will take that. Although I would say we do take credit cards. And that usually solves that problem. But, they could say, well, I only want to donate $5. So it's a suggested donation. So we would take that. Office supplies, tape, scissors, paper clips, staplers, markers, pens, a small notebook duct tape, packing tape, sticky notes, empty envelopes to separate daily cash donations if you'd like to do that. Not a whole lot, but, just some things that you don't want to be running to an office supply store because you're missing some basic thing that you probably already have at home and that you could throw in a shoebox. Not a bad idea to have some first aid supplies, Band-Aids, alcohol wipes, gauze, bottle of ibuprofen, hand sanitizer, might even be more than a nice to have, but a good to have. I've always had one case of water for every 2 days of a show. And I bought those little 8-ounce, in my market, they're made by Ozarka. They don't take up a whole lot of room, and then you can just throw them in the trash can. Usually the show provides a trash can in each booth. So for some reason, those venues seem very dry and you're talking a lot. So having the water is a great thing. You will want to have some kind of a hand truck and or a wagon to move the contents from your vehicle into your booth. You can rent one from U-Haul. They're not very expensive, except when you rent it by the day. If you keep it for 4 or 5 days, you're only going to be about $5 a head from owning one. You can purchase one for about $55 from Lowe's. And I like this style because instead of just being upright, you can also make it flat, and you can stack a lot of stuff when you convert it into the flat, almost like a wagon. if you can't do this, or you just are overwhelmed with moving everything, most venues will offer a service, and they'll come with a big, huge thing. It's about 6 feet by 4 feet, and they'll put the contents of your car in there at about $125 per load. So that is an option. So just keep that in mind, but probably not one that you would want to pay for, because So Powerful won't be covering that. If you want to have any little bite-sized candies in your booth, you can do that. I used a large wooden salad bowl. It looked a little bit rustic there. If you have an American Girl doll and you want to make the school uniform, there's a pattern that Pixie Fair sells that's very similar that you could make and put on your doll if you have a stand for her to stand up. And there is a little form in our Your Foam section that talks about proceeds from the purchase of the Pixie Fair doll purse pattern goes to So Powerful. So we're not offering that for sale, but it's just an example of something, and it just helps to set the mood for the booth. And then there is the signage file for suggested wording. Interlocking foam floor tiles in multiple colors makes standing on a concrete floor much more comfortable, and it adds a bright pop of color to the booth. You would be surprised how many people already own these. People that have young children sometimes buy these for their playrooms, and then the kids outgrow them, but the parents still have them even though they're not being used. So ask around in your neighborhood. If you have a neighborhood Facebook page, just ask if you can borrow. And remember, the booth is 10 by 10, but 4 of those feet are taken up by tables on the side and 1 on the back. So you need like what is that? That's like a 6 by 8 worth of these foam tiles is enough. And then just be sure to tape down the front edge. You can also buy them new if you want just to have them. They were $70 for a 60 square foot pack. And what's nice is they come in these foam squares of 2 feet by 2 feet. So it's easy enough to transport in your car. If you have a rug, you can take that too. Anything helps. It will get pretty dirty though. I mean, you're going to have 10 years worth of foot traffic in your booth and on your rug in about 2 days. So, and then these are again the forms that we talked about. When you click on the button for your forms, or when you click on the, I'm sorry, rather than button, I should have said links, in the handbook, you will be taken to a file view that looks like this. So this is the file for each of the shows. And let me just maybe click on the one here from Indiana, and I hope my screen changed, but it has the contract. It has information about the deposit. It has the names of people who have volunteered to work. It has a disclosure form. It has some marketing information. It has rules for exhibitors. It has the name of the show manager, and it also had a welcome document. And so that kind of information will vary by show, but that's the kind of information you'll find. Your forms has all of these 4 by 6 little signs that you can print out yourself on color paper to display different items that are available for donation. Here's your Quilt Show form, the orientation agenda, the FAQs for the purses, FAQs for So Powerful, the financial report, the job description, just so you can review what you've gotten yourself into. Here's a show pitch. And actually, I'm probably going to update this a little bit to talk about chapters. And I realize that's not in there, and we just want people to talk about, if people say, well, how can I do something locally? We want to give them the information about chapters. And then the checklist that we just went over. So you will find all of this here. Here's also where you will find the show manager's handbook. So everything that you need as a show manager is all right here. This is in Dropbox. You don't have to have a subscription to it. You just have to have the link, and all the links originate in that handbook. So we're going to go on now, and I'm going to show you the show manager survey and supply request form. Welcome to part 3. We're going to talk about surveys and supplies. I want to show you the survey and requisition form. The link for this is in your handbook, which is the only way that you will get there originally, but you can go back and edit it, because after you fill this out and submit it, you will get a confirming email that will have a link to go back in and edit. So there's 3 parts to this form, and part 1 is the show survey section. So red asterisks mean required fields. So we're going to put the show manager's name. Let me see if I can do this without being too time consuming. Mary Wilson at gmail.com. And then this is where the street address, 123 Main Street, Anytown, Texas. Here's a made up post office, and it's in, well, we'll say it's in the Virgin Islands. It's in the United States. Then I pick the name of the show that I'm going to be the show manager for. So I'll pick this one. And then the name of the show management company for insurance purposes. And in this case, it's Quilts Inc. Then I put in the show start and end dates. So I'm going to put in here, it starts here and it ends here. But my show setup date, the reason this is in here is you need to be thinking about not just the show dates, but the dates that you have to be where am I going the wrong way here? Yeah, yes. Where you need to be to get this show set up. So I need to be there on October 27th to do the setup. What's the last day I can receive materials? So let me go to, October. Here's my setup date. I'd like to receive them a week before, just to make sure I have everything. I know how much space everything is going to take up. How many attendees are expected at this show? This is a pretty big show. That I think they usually expect around 60 to 70,000 people. So I'll pick that. How many show badges are included in this booth? I'll say 3, but it's a drop down. And, you could say other if you don't know, or it could be one of these other answers. Referencing the show manager's handbook, which booth layout will you follow? So you're going to have to go back and figure out whether you're doing option 1, 2, 3, or something else. So we're going to say option 1. Please confirm that the show will provide 1 8-foot table and 3 sides, 8 foot tall and 10 foot wide with drapes. Yes, no, I'm unsure. I'm going to say yes. Are black floor length table covers black in capitals? Because if they're going to provide white or maroon, we don't want those. We'll cover them up. We want black. Yes. Wait a minute. Are black floor length table covers provided for all tables provided by the show? Yes. And some tables, but not all, unsure, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to give you what possible answers we would have. Are chairs provided by the show? It's usually 1 or 2 chairs. And this isn't terribly important, but if they're going to provide you with bar stools or something else, you probably want to think about how that's all going to work. Okay, what are the proof of liability insurance requirements here? So So Powerful must provide proof of a minimum $1 million, big difference, and name the show management as additionally insured. So Powerful may use its own insurance carrier and provide proof of 1 million without naming the show manager as co-insured. So Powerful must use the show's insurance carrier, which would be a whole different thing, or unsure. So this is their requirement. We provide it and we co-insure them against liability. What are the requirements for So Powerful to prove nonprofit status? You may start out and answer this unsure, but at least no later than probably 5 weeks before your show. You ought to know the answer to this, because if we have to file things with the state, it's going to take a little bit of time. And Texas provides proof of tax filings for the previous year. And actually, my husband has been doing this now for about 4 years for So Powerful in Texas. So we'll be ready to go whenever we have a show. If additional items are supplied or not provided. So this might be like no table. I mean, you might say this, which is actually the case for our Pennsylvania show. We're going to have to pay money to get a table. Are there any unusual show rules? I don't know. I made up something silly. No shoes allowed. Now, I'm sure that's not the case, but whatever. Okay, so there's section 1. And some of this is going to require you to have studied the show rules, to look at their website, to noodle around, to ask some questions, to talk with me. Okay, show manager provided items. A lot of this is more of a checklist, but it's just sort of, it's one thing to check it off on a piece of paper that you have at home. It's another to commit to it. So this is where you're committing. You chose option 1 for your booth layout. Please confirm that you will provide 2 tables plus 1 round table. Yes, no, I'm not sure. I'm going to say yes. Rug or floor covering. It's totally up to you whether to do it, but just by answering this question makes you think about it. 8 by 8, maybe it's other size because you're not going to use all of those, but or it might be none, and you're certainly not required to do it, but just be thinking about what is it that I want to do. Floor length table covers provided in black to be supplied by the show manager. Just the tables I'm bringing for the venues plus my tables, for venue tables only, none. So I'm going to say just for the tables I'm bringing, because they are providing black, I think it's black skirting on theirs. African themed topper to be supplied for 1, 2, 3, 4 are all tables. I'm just going to say all tables, which happens to be the same as 4 tables. Source of the purse display panels in black. I will make my own. I will request them from So Powerful. Unless you're the one person who's making them, everybody ought to just say you're requesting them, and you'll be part of this chain where you will get the ones that you need. And the hooks, I will bind my own to match the grommets, and there's extra large grommets that require a different hook, and then they're small. I will request hooks to go with my panels, which is probably the easier thing to do. You chose option 1 for your booth layout. This requires 106 purses for display. What will be the source of these purses? I will be responsible for securing the total number of purses. I need purses from So Powerful. Let me just show you what happens if you answer that. If you say it that way, how many additional purses do you need from So Powerful? And you could put in a number. But if you say I'm responsible for providing my own purses, that question goes away. Are you able to secure 50 to 100 So Powerful beginner pattern booklets printed locally to offer for donation in the book? We will not offer printed intermediate booklets. Yes, no, unsure. If you say no, we're going to be contacting you, trying to work with you and give you some suggestions of how you can get those locally. Worst case scenario, we'll try and come up and ship some, but this is going to be expensive. Containers or baskets to display merch for donation. Honestly, you could put whatever you want in here. Just put 5, but it just makes you think, okay, I need to be bringing some stuff to put all of this in. The signage donation, these are the little things that say suggested donation, $10 for the We Are So Powerful book. Suggested donation, $10 for the beginner printed pattern booklet. Those kinds of things. This is, again, just a reminder. Yes, I'm either going to print them myself, and if you do, it just uses black ink, and I would put it on something very bright and colorful paper, or you could take the file on a thumb drive over to Office Depot and they'll print them for you, but it's probably not really necessary. Cash donation jar, I will bring a suitable jar or bowl to accept cash donations, decorations optional. Locking cash box. I will bring a locking cash box that I will keep in a secure place at all times. We do require this during the day. The box should be underneath the tables, behind the tablecloth, and keep an eye on the cash donation jar. You don't want to have $1,000 in cash in there. It might be too tempting for one of the show attendees. So, no more than, I would say, 200, 250 in there. And when you start to get more, discreetly take it out and put it in the locking cash box. And then you'll take that cash box less your $20 seed money that I think you could safely leave in a secure place under the tables. And you just need to make sure that whoever has the first shift knows where to find that money to get started. I will ensure that at least one person per shift has downloaded the credit card app to their mobile phone, and more details are coming on that. We'll know more about that in about a week after the time that this is recorded, but this should be pretty easy. Yes or no. If you say no, I'll be calling you. And then this is just a reminder, a vehicle large enough to transport all materials. This is not the time to drive your Mini Cooper to the Quilt Show. You're going to need a pickup truck, an SUV. I think my husband and I took our 2 cars to be able to get everything there. Yes, I will be responsible for transporting all materials from my home to the show and back to my show after the back to my home after the show has ended. Okay, that's part 2. Part 3, this is where So Powerful is going to start sending you things. So the point of sale credit card reader, So Powerful will provide one credit card reader and charger loan to you for your show. It will require you to ensure at least one person per shift has downloaded the app to their cell phone. Okay, so that's just a reminder. Show venue requires the table covers to be fire retardant. I'll say no, except in my case, whoops, you can only answer one. In my case in Houston, as of the last show, they required it. I haven't determined whether it's required for 2021 or not, but probably will be. Here's the next question. You chose option 1 for your booth. Please confirm that you need 17 purse panels with matching hooks from So Powerful. Yes, no, I'm not sure. Yes, that is what you need. If you say no or unsure, then I can call you and talk through it. How many additional show badges are required? If allowed, we'll order shared or floater badges to cover the volunteers. Make sure there are enough within reason to allow volunteers to enjoy the quilt show when not on duty. So if you have 3 people working the booth and 2 additional people that could go around with, 2 friends, walk around the show, 5 badges needed. And if they're allowing us to share, then we only need to buy 2 more, but chances are we're going to need to get more than that. How many So Powerful aprons do you need based on the maximum number of volunteers working the booth at any one time? Aprons should be handed off to volunteers working the next shift, with the exception of someone who brings their own. So probably the most that you would need would be 3, and it might be fewer than that. Well, it's probably always going to be 3, but whatever. Okay. You chose option 1 for your booth layout. You will receive the following display items from So Powerful. 1 quilted So Powerful logo banner, 1 quilted large format photo, 4 large format photos. And in reality, if you get them shipped directly to you from Costco, you'll get duplicates. So you'll get 8, and we'll have to tell you what to do with your duplicates. These will arrive in multiple shipments from multiple shippers. Yes, ship to the address provided in section 1. Unfortunately, I can't just have something without a check mark on this form. Oh, and that's a mistake. Ignore that. I'll take that off. Okay. The following merchandise to offer for donation will be sent to the shipping address you provided in section 1, unless otherwise indicated below, which I need to change that because you can't indicate otherwise. Quantities sent will be based on expected show attendance and may come from multiple suppliers. And you will get So Powerful flyers / handbills. That's all the same thing. So Powerful beginner purse pattern booklets, only if local donor cannot be provided. And we really hope and pray that won't be the case. We Are So Powerful second edition books. Additional items may be added as they become available. And these could include things like 3 fat quarter bundles and a layout, strapping that you can use to make purse straps, which would be like webbing, some decorative ribbons, some charms, some other things like that we've used in the past, but we don't have probably for the very first show. So I click ship to the address provided in section 1. Thank you for completing this form. You will get an email recapping your answers. You can save or print it for your records. You may have answered unknown or unsure for some. When these become known, or if circumstances change, you can always edit this form by clicking on the link provided in the confirmation email. You will get a new confirmation with your updated selections. If you have questions, please contact me. There we go. I hit the submit button, which I'm not going to do in case there's really a Mary Wilson. I made up that email address. I don't want to send this to Mary Wilson, but when you do that, I get a copy of the form with everything that you've filled out, and you will also get the same thing. And then you will also have the link to be able to go back in. And when you hit that edit button in that email, save the email, it will take you back to the form and you can change anything that you need to change. So that is it. I know that's a lot to absorb, but on the other hand, believe me, you would probably rather know about all this in advance rather than be surprised on the day that you're trying to load your car to go to your show or get to the show and not have what you need. I am available to you. My job is to make this a great experience for you. My email is janc@sopowerful.org. My phone number is 832-250-5847. Call me if you need me. This is my job. This is why I'm here. We want this to be a great experience for you and your volunteers. Thank you so much and have a great, great show.